All right, so you guys sent us some clips from Finance O'Clock, that financial YouTube channel, about Mr. Beast maybe buying TikTok. And I got to say, the first time I saw that, I was like, well, is this a real Mr. Beast buying TikTok? To save it from a ban sounds like a movie plot. But then billionaires actually said they were interested, and now things are getting interesting. So is this just internet hype, or could this actually happen? That's what we're diving into today.
It's a bold move for sure,
Yeah.
but maybe not as crazy as it sounds at first. I think we need to start with just how big this deal would be. Experts are saying that TikTok's U.S. operations are worth somewhere between $40 and $50 billion. That's like
Yeah.
more than some entire countries.
Yeah, that's a crazy number. And to be clear, that's billion with a B. I mean,
Not just very,
to put that in perspective, that's like buying every single pro sports team and still having enough money left over to buy like,
all the snacks. Exactly. And that leads us to the big question, money. So, as you know, Mr. Beast is super successful. His net worth is estimated to be around $700 million, which, I mean, most people will never see that much money in their lives. But compared to what TikTok is worth, it's not even close.
yeah, it's like comparing, like a piggy bank to Fort Knox. So how in the world could he come up with the rest of the money? Finance O'Clock suggested we look at how Elon Musk bought Twitter as a kind of example.
Right. Musk used his own money, but he also got these huge investments from tech companies, took out massive loans from banks. And then there's something called private equity. Think of private equity firms like these. Giant pools of money managed by super investors. They're always on the lookout for companies that could grow super fast. And something like TikTok would definitely get their attention.
Okay, so walk me through how all of that could actually work. Finance O'Clock had some numbers for us.
All right, so imagine this. Mr. Beast and some other big creators on the internet all chip in about $1 billion. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're talking about some of the biggest names online here. Then you'd need some major tech investors to come in with some serious cash, maybe around $20 billion. Now, these investors aren't just giving Mr. Beast money because they like his videos. They're betting that he can turn TikTok into this money-making machine.
Okay, so that's 21 billion. Where does the rest come from?
You'd have to get bank loans. Probably another 20 billion or so. And remember, banks aren't just giving away money. They want to see a good business plan and a really good chance that they'll make a ton of money. And then finally, you'd need those private equity firms to cover the last 9 billion. They're known for taking risks, but they also expect a big chunk of the profits if it works out.
All right, so that's how you get to 50 billion. But honestly, why would these billionaires even think about working with Mr. Beast? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, he's got money, but there are a lot of rich people out there.
It's more than just his money. It's what he represents. He has the most popular YouTube channel in the world. He's got a successful burger chain, a popular chocolate brand. I mean, it seems like everything he does blows up.
Yeah, he's like the Midas of the internet. Whatever he touches turns to viral gold.
Right. He knows what audiences want. He knows how to create content that people love. And he knows how to build a community of really dedicated fans. That kind of knowledge is incredibly valuable, especially for a platform like TikTok, where most of the content is made by the users themselves.
That makes sense. But let's talk about the timeline for a second. Finance O'Clock talked about this January 19th deadline.
Yeah.
After that, TikTok could be banned in the U.S. Can you even put together a deal this big in such a short amount of time?
It's definitely a tight deadline, no question. But there are a few things working in Mr. Beast's favor. First of all, he already knows a lot of big tech investors. Through all the different things he's involved in, and even with all the controversy, TikTok is making a lot of money from ads, which would be a big plus for the banks. And then you have to think about how the U.S. government feels about TikTok being owned by a Chinese company. A deal led by an American like Mr. Beast might actually be seen as a good solution to those national security concerns.
Okay, so let's say, hypothetically, everything works out perfectly. The money comes through, the government gives the okay, and Mr. Beast is suddenly running TikTok. What would that actually look like?
Well, Finance O'Clock had some interesting ideas. Maybe more features that help out the creators, maybe even giving creators more control over the algorithms that decide what people see.
I like that idea. That would be a huge change from how traditional social media works.
Exactly. And I think it would be really appealing to creators who feel like those algorithms have too much power. Then there's talk of better ways for creators to make money, giving them a bigger cut of the ad revenue.
That would be huge. So many creators struggle to make a living from their content, even if they have millions of followers.
Yeah, and then you can't forget about Mr. Beast style, all those crazy challenges and giveaways. Just imagine that kind of energy on TikTok.
It would be pure chaos. but in a good way. And maybe, just maybe, some of that MrBeast magic will rub off on the rest of us. Who knows? Maybe we'll all be winning cars and private islands soon.
Okay, now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. This deal is far from done. There are some major obstacles in the way. First of all, ByteDance, which is TikTok's parent company, they might not even want to sell. And even if they do, putting together a deal worth billions of dollars in just a few days would be a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, it's not like buying a used car on Craigslist. But let's pretend for a minute that MrBeast somehow pulls this off. What would a TikTok run by a creator? What would that actually mean for users like you and me?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Would it make the platform more fair for creators? Would it lead to better content? Would it change how we use social media? These are questions that we need to explore further.
Okay, so we've talked about how this deal could be financed, the challenges they'll face, and how this could affect creators. But this story is about so much more than just money and algorithms. It brings up some really important questions about who controls the internet, who gets to decide what happens on these platforms that have become such a big part of our lives, and what happens when the line between tech companies and content creators starts to get blurry.
That's where things get really interesting. We're seeing a possible shift in power. And it's hard to say what that will mean in the long run. But one thing is for sure, this whole MrBeast TikTok situation is a sign that the internet is changing, and the rules of the game are being rewritten right in front of us. It's almost like we're seeing this new type of person emerge, the creatorpreneur, someone who's not just making content, but building entire businesses and whole ecosystems around their personal brand.
Really is like the Wild West out there, and honestly, that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating, watching how this power dynamic plays out.
I agree. But let's zoom out for a second and talk about the bigger picture. Even if MrBeast doesn't end up buying TikTok, this whole thing has started this really important conversation about the future of social media. Like, what would it really mean to have a platform that's run by a creator instead of a traditional tech company?
Yeah, that's something Finance O'Clock mentioned briefly, but I'd love to hear more about that. What are the potential benefits?
Well, one of the biggest potential benefits is that a platform run by a creator could be designed with creators' needs in mind. We could see features that give creators more control over their content, their data, and how much money they make.
It's like giving the power back to the people who are actually making the content that makes these platforms valuable.
Exactly. Imagine a platform where creators have a say in how the algorithms work, how they make money, and how content is moderated. It could completely change the creator economy.
But let's be real. Running a global platform like TikTok is a lot more complicated than just making funny videos.
You're absolutely right. There are some serious challenges that a platform run by creators would have to face. One of the biggest ones is content moderation. TikTok already has problems with misinformation, hate speech, and harmful content. Trying to control all of that while also protecting freedom of expression is a tough balancing act.
You can't forget about data security and user privacy. Those are huge issues that even the biggest tech companies struggle with. Could a creator-led platform handle those responsibilities?
It's a good question. Managing the data of billions of users requires a lot of expertise and resources. And then there's the issue of bias. If a platform is mostly shaped by one creator's vision, it might not work for everyone. You have to think about the diverse needs and interests of a global audience.
That's a really important point. You don't want a platform that feels like an echo chamber, or that only promotes a certain type of content.
Exactly. Diversity and inclusivity are really important for any platform that wants to be successful in the long run.
So it sounds like there's no easy answer, no magic formula for creating the perfect social media platform. It's complicated.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this whole discussion so interesting. We're at a turning point for social media, and it's not clear what direction we'll go in. Will creators become the new tech giants, or will the big platforms find ways to adapt and change?
It feels like we're on the verge of a major shift. And I have to ask, what do you think? Do you think a creator-led platform could actually work?
I think it definitely has the potential. Creators really understand what their audiences want, and they're often more in tune with internet culture than people who run traditional tech companies.
They're the ones out there experimenting, trying new things,
Yes.
and connecting with their communities in genuine ways.
Exactly. But it would take some careful balancing. You'd need to combine the creativity and community-building skills of creators with the technical know-how and infrastructure of a traditional tech company.
It's like finding the perfect recipe. You need the right ingredients in the right amounts to make something truly special. But let's imagine for a second that MrBeast actually does this impossible thing. He buys TikTok, and it becomes this creator-led paradise. What happens next? What are the ripple effects?
Well, I think it could have a huge impact on the entire tech industry. If a content creator, even one as successful as MrBeast, could actually take over a tech giant like TikTok, it would show that power is shifting. It would prove that creators aren't just passive players anymore. They can be the ones who shake things up
Yeah,
and disrupt entire industries.
it's like David beating Goliath, but in the digital world.
You got it. And that kind of disruption could lead to a wave of innovation. We might see other creators starting their own platforms, challenging the big companies that are already out there. We might see investors putting more money into creator-led startups because they're starting to recognize how valuable these communities are.
This could be the start of a whole new era for the internet, an era where creativity, authenticity, and community are the most important things.
It's an exciting thought, isn't it? But it also brings up a whole new set of questions and challenges, like how do you make sure that a platform run by creators stays fair and accessible to everyone? How do you stop it from becoming just another echo chamber or a place for self-promotion?
Those are the big questions we need to think about as we move forward. But one thing's for sure, this whole MrBeast TikTok situation has shown us a possible future where the lines between being a content creator and being a tech entrepreneur are becoming more and more blurred.
And that's a future I'm really excited to see unfold.
This whole thing has really got me thinking about how much power individual creators have to change culture and come up with new ideas.
Yeah, that's one of the most interesting parts of this whole story. We tend to think of these tech giants as these huge, unstoppable forces, but MrBeast trying to buy TikTok, even if it doesn't work out, it shows that individuals can still challenge the way things are and disrupt whole industries.
It's like a modern-day David and Goliath story.
Exactly. And it really shows the power of building your own personal brand, creating a community, and having that entrepreneurial spirit. MrBeast has built this empire completely outside of the traditional ways of doing things in Hollywood or Silicon Valley.
Yeah, he's playing by his own rules.
Yeah.
And it seemed to be working. But let's go back to something we were talking about earlier. What if MrBeast actually does become the head of TikTok? What could that mean for regular users like us?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but we can make some guesses based on what we know about MrBeast, his style, and what he values. He's all about giving back to his community, creating opportunities for others, and pushing the limits of what you can do with online content.
Yeah, he's famous for those crazy stunts and giveaways. Imagine that energy on TikTok. It can make the platform even more exciting and unpredictable.
I know, right? We might see a ton of creative challenges, collaborative projects, and maybe even more chances for users to win prizes or get featured.
It would definitely make TikTok more fun. But let's look at the other side of this for a second. Are there any downsides to having a platform that's so influenced by one person's vision?
That's a good point. One risk is that the platform could become too focused on one type of content or one kind of aesthetic.
Like everyone just copying MrBeast's style.
Exactly. Having a variety of content and viewpoints is really important for a healthy online community. You don't want a platform that feels like a one-man show.
So it sounds like there needs to be a balance
Yeah,
between MrBeast's vision and what the rest of the TikTok community wants.
definitely. It would be a tough balancing act. But if they do it right, I think it could lead to a platform that's
More engaging.
more fair.
And better for creators.
And that's what we all want, right? A
Yeah.
platform that helps creators, entertains users, and creates a sense of community.
Exactly. And whether or not MrBeast actually buys TikTok,
Okay.
I think this whole situation has been a wake-up call for the tech industry. It shows that creators have a lot of power and influence, and they're not just going to sit back and watch anymore.
They're stepping up, demanding a place at the table, and shaping the future of the internet.
And that's a future I'm excited to be a part of.
I agree. I think we've covered a lot today. From the financial details of the deal to the bigger implications for social media and how creators make a living.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation. And I think the biggest takeaway is the internet is constantly changing, and we need to be ready for anything. Who knows what's next for TikTok, MrBeast, or the internet as a whole?
But one thing's for sure, it's going to be a wild ride. So to everyone listening out there, stay curious, keep exploring, and don't be afraid to challenge the way things are. We'll see you on our next deep dive.